Hello everyone, and welcome back to Nimby Rails. Again, this is going to be that really realistic train simulation. I'm still figuring out how it works, but I think I have somewhat of a handle on what's going on. Now today, I've already got my trams up here, trams down in Heber, and a little regional train line connecting them both. And today the plan is to expand, no surprises there, to expand down to Orem, and I'll set up some trams in there and maybe look at the train line running down there at the same time. So I don't have much else to say. Let's cut to the time lapse. Okay, so laying out the tram system in Orem is so far the biggest project that I've attempted in this run. It took about an hour, maybe a little more than an hour, to get everything set up, and that's just because it's a fairly large area. I covered Orem and Linden as well in the same tram system, and there's just kind of a lot of track to lay down, a lot of stations, because there's so many people in Orem. You have to make sure you get your capacity right. I eventually did have to put down like a ton of trains in that area just to service so many people, relative to what I was doing up in the Wasatch Back. Now, Orem's part of the Wasatch Front. It's in Utah County, and it's the closest city to my hometown in the Heber Valley. And because of that, that's where we all go if we need like Costco or Trader Joe's or Target or whatever. That's our nearest one of any of those big box stores. However, we do all hate Orem because of that. And that's because Orem is, well, it's horrible. It's just really, really sprawly with, big parking lots, and, it's super ugly, and it just kind of sucks. So sorry if you live in Orem and you're listening to this. There's not much chance of that, but if you do, no hate on you in particular, just your city sucks. No disrespect. Hopefully, if there was better public transit like this with these trams, it would kind of help reduce the car dependency and the parking lots and the big wide roads that make it the way that it is. But as it is, Orem sucks. Anyways, with the building that I'm doing now, I put down all my stations, got stuff kind of all over the place. I wanted to make sure that I had my one station over way on the eastern side by the mountains, because in the mountains, it's a lot easier to run train tracks. Because you don't have as many roads to cross, and you can just kind of make big, long, straight stuff that dodges all of the population density. And so I made sure to have a station up there where I could put my train station, all my train stations going up and down the Wasatch Front, as it were, are going to be like that. So I can connect, Salt Lake and Provo, which is south of Orem, and, everything up there, all in the same kind of deal. With the actual tram layout, what I did was basically putting in 3 lines, although it's really more like 2 lines. Basically all those stations up there on the west that I'm currently kind of setting up, that's making up my north to south line. And then all the stations that didn't hit are part of my Orem City Center line, which I've got one of those going clockwise and one going counterclockwise, so you go in the right direction. You don't have to loop all the way around. And so that just means that more or less I get to cover the whole area without worrying about, super, super long tram lines and stuff getting backed up. So I went in here, set up the lines, renamed all the stations. So I did that. I ended up going with the city trams that I used up in Park City, just because they have higher capacity, so I don't have to run so many, and I can keep my running costs down. I've actually spent a whole lot on trains, more so than I have on tracks, which has kind of surprised me. Maybe that'll change when I build in denser areas with more roads to cross. All right, and that is all of my trams laid out in the Orem area. As you can see, we're making a fair amount of money. Yesterday we made $186,000. We've got all our trams running through here. I've got a couple different lines going on there. We've got our Orem north-south line in yellow, and then we've got the city center line with the clockwise and counterclockwise lines running through there. And I realized that the capacity, the amount of capacity I have on some of my vehicles was like way too high. I had like 3 people waiting at a place, and then have a car come by with, not a car, have a tram come by with like, the capacity of like 100. And so I did a little bit of selling some of those old trains and getting that all fixed up. And so yeah, now we're all set up to lay down our train line running through Provo Canyon up there to Midway, and get that connected with a big long train line. So then you can get people riding from Park City all the way down to Orem, which that'll be really great. Eventually be able to expand more, but that's the plan. Spent about an hour building out these trams, so it should probably take about that long next episode when I'm building in Provo and that kind of deal. Okay, let's cut to the time lapse. It was actually a little bit more challenging building the trains this time than they were in Park City, mostly just because of this first little section you're watching right now. I was building in Midway, and my train station was at a pretty clear path on the way to Park City, but down to Provo, not so much. You can see I'm trying to cross these roads. I can't cross it too acute of an angle because then it won't even allow me to cross at all, just because it would be crossing on the road for too long. You can't get one of those like direct perpendicular crossings, and so I have to go for a few tries to get through here without hitting too many roads. And so you can see that's what I'm doing. I'm going around some of the golf courses in that kind of area, sometimes cutting through golf courses because screw golf courses, don't tell my grandpa. Anyway, we're making our way out of Midway, and then it just gets a whole lot faster at this point because I can go down Provo Canyon, which is a very pretty canyon. I do kind of hate to be spoiling it with train tracks, but train tracks are cool after all, and there's already a highway. So yeah, I'm making my way down Provo Canyon, get to connect it up to my station down in Orem, and then from there, we can have more train tracks kind of running up and down the Wasatch Front. And that's kind of the transfers I'm expecting people to do is you go for the back, Wasatch back to the Wasatch Front. Transfer, you can move up and down however you like. I think that should be pretty cool. Now I'm setting up the lines, which I need to add more trains than I had before because obviously it's a longer line and we need more trains to service those more people and more stations. So that's kind of what I'm going with. I'm making longer trains this time because all of a sudden I need a lot more capacity to serve denser areas. All right, guys, and we're back. That is the line going from the Heber Valley to Orem. Building the line was actually pretty super easy. That was the first bit you saw. I'm not sure if I'm keeping it in the video, but I cut partway through when I was just trying to solve problems with how many trains I had. Basically, if you remember, I had fewer trains than that running there, and shorter trains than that running, well, actually Park City was probably fine, but fewer trains and shorter trains than that running in Orem. I've had to do a bunch of stuff because it turns out when you get connections between your different cities, people will show up at the station and then they'll want to ride the tram around. And so I've just got tons and tons more customers. It's a good problem to have, I would say. But I've got people and they get on the tram in Orem and they ride up to, let's say, the Heber Valley, and then they're here and there just wasn't enough tram capacity to pick them up at Dutchfields and take them to wherever they're looking to go in Heber. So that's kind of what's up with that. I'm thinking I'm not going to cut the episode here because I've decided I do want to add a little tram line to this area, separate from the rest of the Park City one. It'll connect at the Dirt Jump Park, but then so let's cut to the time lapse for that, and then I'll show you everything I've got going on at the end. So I was kind of debating actually setting up trams at all in here, just because it's a bit less dense than the areas I've covered already. But I figured, hey, if I can build in Midway, I can build up in North Summit. And turned out that was a pretty smart idea. I'm still making profit on these trams, and I'm just collecting more people to bring into my larger system. So you can see it really does count as Park City. When we say we're going up to Park City, we oftentimes mean going up here to Kimball Junction or whatever. This is where you have a lot of restaurants and that kind of deal. But technically they are going to be other cities, whatever. So that's kind of cool. I forgot to mention actually why building in Provo Canyon was easier than building in town, and that's because there's fewer roads to cross there. I think it would be interesting if this game made you care a little bit more about the terrain, if you couldn't gain too much elevation or lose too much elevation with your tracks at a time. It might account for that a little, but clearly not enough to stop me from building in Provo Canyon super easily, which is a canyon. It's got some pretty steep canyon walls that I was kind of more or less ignoring with my track laying. Makes my life easier, but it is, not quite helping with the simulation aspect, which I think is one of the game's main draws. So I kind of line it up here. There's a few different areas, so I made the lines kind of not go direct in a straight line, but pretty close. yeah, you can connect through a few different areas, the Jeremy Ranch area and Kimball Junction, and just the general like junctions up there. I didn't go all the way up to North Summit, but whatever, it's fine. No one lives up there anyway. All right, guys, and now that I have finished building the my North Summit tram line, that's gonna be all the building I've done for today. I've done a whole bunch of fiddling with trains and schedules and timetables and ticket prices just to try to get things figured out. I needed even more trams down here in Wasatch County. I added a third train to the Wasatch Back Connector line. Orem's looking fine for now, though. And let's just take a look at Monday to see how much cash we're making. Looking like we've got 2,000 boarding failed full trains, but nobody waited long enough for me to have to refund them. Awesome. Awesome. That means I've got enough trains running on all these lines. Yeah, so it looks like I'm making almost $1 million a day, which is, if we look at this, that is enough to more or less break even on a month-to-month basis. And as I expand more, I'll really start raking in some serious profits. Thanks for watching. Next time, my plan is to expand in Utah County. So that'll be Provo, Pleasant Grove, American Fork, this kind of area. And get more, trains and such running throughout there. Thanks for watching.